Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It all started on a quiet, seemingly uneventful morning in Genoa City, but within hours, the entire Abbott household would be shaken to its core. Jack Abbott was sipping his coffee in the sunroom of the Abbott mansion when Diane Jenkins, visibly rattled, appeared in the doorway. The way her fingers trembled as she clutched a manila envelope didn't escape Jack's notice. "Diane?" he asked, his voice cautious. "Is something wrong?" She stared at him for a long moment, then slowly stepped forward. "There's something I've been keeping to myself for too long, Jack. Something that's about to change everything. About Audra and Kyle." Jack's brow furrowed at the mere mention of the two names together. Kyle and Audra had once shared a flirtation, maybe even more, but their dynamic had soured since. Lately, they had been adversaries more than anything else, with Kyle still bitter over her manipulations while at Newman Media. But Diane's tone wasn't about workplace grudges or corporate vendettas. No, this was something far deeper, and the look in her eyes chilled Jack's blood. "I never meant for this to come out like this," Diane whispered. "But you deserve the truth. Kyle deserves the truth. And Audra, she has no idea." Jack stood, setting down his cup. "Diane, what are you talking about?" She handed him the envelope. Inside, there were hospital records, photographs, and a long letter written in Diane's familiar cursive. Jack read the first few lines and then stopped cold. This says that Audra is my daughter? Our daughter?" Diane nodded, her eyes shining with restrained emotion. "It was years ago, Jack. You and I were in one of our many complicated phases. I had just returned from a trip to New York. We spent a weekend together. You might not even remember it, but I found out I was pregnant shortly after. At the time, you were with Phyllis. I was scared, confused, and ashamed." Jack staggered back, nearly losing his balance. "You mean to tell me, you had my child and didn't tell me?" Diane began to cry. "I didn't know what to do. I was going through so much, and I didn't want to trap you. I didn't want to bring more chaos into your life. So I left Genoa City again and went to Los Angeles. I stayed with a friend, and I gave birth to Audra there. I gave her up for adoption." Jack looked like he'd been punched in the gut. "You gave her away." Diane's voice cracked. "I was young. I was lost. I thought it was the only way. But the moment I saw her, I knew I made a mistake. I tried to get her back, but it was too late. She'd already been placed with a couple, and they were wealthy, powerful, and connected. I had no legal ground to stand on. The adoption was sealed, and I lost all rights." Jack slowly sat down, still holding the documents like they were radioactive. "So you just went on with your life? Never told me? Never looked for her again?" Diane shook her head, pain etched on her face. "No, I did look. Years later, when she was in her teens, I tracked her down. I watched from afar. She'd become this beautiful, fierce young woman. Her adoptive parents were dead by then, some plane crash, I think, and she'd been taken in by distant relatives. That's when she started using the name Audra Charles. That's when I knew I couldn't stay away forever. I followed her career, watched her rise. And when I saw she had ties to Newman, and later to Kyle, I panicked. I had to make sure she didn't get too close to him." Jack's eyes widened in horror. "You knew she and Kyle were getting involved, and you still said nothing?" Diane collapsed onto the couch. "It was the worst mistake of my life. I didn't know how to stop it without revealing everything. I thought maybe it was just business between them. But then they started dating. And every night, I couldn't sleep, thinking of what might happen if they crossed a line they couldn't come back from." Jack stood up abruptly, pacing, struggling to keep his composure. "We have to tell them. Right now." Diane nodded. "That's why I came. This can't wait any longer." Meanwhile, at Society, Kyle was having a tense lunch meeting with Audra. Their conversation was sharp, both trying to get under each other's skin. "You never change, do you?" Kyle muttered, sipping his whiskey. Audra arched a brow. "That's rich coming from you. Still chasing daddy's approval while pretending to be a rebel." The barbs were old and familiar, but beneath the sarcasm, something else lingered. A strange pull they both felt but never understood. An unexplainable connection that made their attraction confusing. Before things could escalate, Jack and Diane entered, drawing both their attention. Jack's face was pale. Diane looked like a ghost. "We need to talk," Jack said. "Privately." In the VIP lounge, Jack explained everything. The hospital records. The weekend Diane and Jack had reconnected. The pregnancy. The adoption. The truth. Silence descended. Kyle stared blankly at his parents. "You're saying Audra is my sister?" Audra, too, looked stunned, her face drained of color. "That's impossible," she said weakly. "My birth certificate," Diane cut her off. "It was altered. I tried to get your name unsealed from the records, but it was blocked for years. The only proof is in those DNA tests. I had them run secretly. You're Jack's biological daughter, which makes Kyle your half-brother." Audra stumbled back, as if physically hit by the revelation. This changes everything." Kyle looked like he might be sick. "I kissed her. We were together." Jack closed his eyes in agony. "I know, son. And I'm so sorry." Audra clenched her fists, angry tears streaming down her cheeks. "How could you both let this happen? How could you keep this from me? From us?" Diane tried to approach her, but Audra flinched. "Don't. Just don't." She stormed out, leaving Kyle and Jack in stunned silence. Diane started sobbing into her hands. Later that evening, Audra found herself alone at Chancellor Park. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of pain, anger, and disbelief. Her entire identity had been ripped away. She wasn't just Audra Charles' power broker, dealmaker, seductress. She was an Abbott. Jack's daughter. Kyle's sister. All the ambition that had driven her suddenly felt hollow. She remembered the nights she'd spent talking to Kyle, laughing, sparring, even sharing vulnerable pieces of themselves. Now every memory was tainted. She felt violated by fate itself. Kyle was just as broken. He sat alone in the Abbott living room, staring into the fireplace though it wasn't even lit. He thought about the flirtation, the innuendo, the near-romantic moments with Audra. He thought about how drawn to her he'd been, how magnetic she felt. Now, he understood why. They shared blood. A bond they didn't know existed, but one that had already wrecked them in ways neither could have imagined. When summer arrived and found him like that, he couldn't even explain. "I can't talk about it," he said, voice raw. Summer knew something horrible had happened, but gave him space. Over the next few days, the news spread privately through the Abbott family. Ashley was stunned but surprisingly sympathetic. Tracy, ever the peacemaker, tried to bring Audra into the fold gently. Billy didn't know what to think. Audra was practically an enemy in business, but now she was family. There were hushed conversations at the mansion, worried glances, awkward silences at family meals. But the hardest part was still ahead. Audra refused to speak to Diane. She barely acknowledged Jack. And she completely shut Kyle out. But the hurt was too fresh to move on. Eventually, Jack cornered her outside society. "I know you're furious," he said. "And you have every right to be. But I need you to know something. I didn't know. I would have raised you. I would have loved you. I still want to." Audra's eyes filled again. "It's not that easy, Jack. You're my father. But you're also the father of the man I almost..." She couldn't finish. "I don't know how to be part of this family. I don't know if I want to." Jack nodded solemnly. "Then we'll take it one step at a time. You don't have to decide today. But no matter what, I'm here. We're your family now, even if it's complicated." Audra didn't answer. She just walked away. In the weeks that followed, things began to shift. Slowly, Audra attended a few Abbott dinners, awkwardly at first, then gradually finding her place. Kyle and she never spoke directly again about their past connection, but there was an unspoken agreement. It would never happen again. Their dynamic changed from fiery flirtation to tense, bittersweet siblingship. They were bonded in pain, but also in blood. And Diane? She spent every day trying to make up for her sins. Volunteering, donating, staying out of the spotlight. She'd lost Audra's trust, perhaps permanently, but she hoped one day she'd earn a sliver of forgiveness. Because no secret, no matter how deeply buried, could stay hidden forever in Genoa City. And now that the truth was out, the real work of healing had only just begun. The revelation rippled through Genoa City like a shockwave, but the aftershocks were only beginning. In the wake of Diane's confession, the Abbott family had entered a period of uneasy quiet, with everyone privately wrestling with the truth. At Jabot, business meetings became strained, especially when Kyle and Audra had to share the same room. Neither spoke of the past, but tension lingered in the air like static. At one point, Kyle even requested reassignment to avoid direct dealings with her, a request Jack quietly approved. Yet the divide couldn't be fully repaired by paperwork or polite silence. The damage was emotional, deep, and rooted in history neither of them had the power to rewrite. Phyllis Summers, ever curious and never one to stay uninvolved, caught wind of the story through overheard whispers at Crimson Lights. Though she and Diane had a volatile past, she couldn't help but feel a strange sort of vindication. So Diane had another kid she kept secret? Shocking, she muttered to herself sarcastically before calling Summer to confirm what she already suspected. Summer, loyal to Kyle but stunned by the news, hesitated. Yes, it's true. Audra is Kyle's sister. Jack's daughter. Diane kept it hidden for decades. Phyllis went quiet on the line, but her mind was racing. If Jack has another daughter, that changes the Abbott family legacy. Audra now has a legitimate stake in everything. Summer already knew where her mother's thoughts were headed. Don't, Mom. Don't try to use this to play sides. Kyle's devastated. This isn't about power or money, it's about family. Phyllis sighed. I'm just saying, when people learn who Audra really is, it's going to shake up everything. Including Jabot. And it did. Within days, whispers leaked to the press. A tabloid headline blasted across social media. Abbott Bombshell, Jack's secret daughter revealed as Audra Charles. The fallout was immediate. Stockholders questioned Jabot's leadership, fearing scandal. Journalists hounded Jack and Audra at public appearances. Even Victor Newman called Jack personally. I have to admit, Jack. I didn't see this one coming, he said with a voice dripping in superiority. Let me know if you need help managing the optics. I'm very experienced when it comes to long-lost children. Jack didn't take the bait. I'm managing just fine, Victor. But the truth was, Jack was far from fine. In private moments, Jack began to revisit memories, trying to piece together what he could have done differently. Could he have guessed? Could he have seen it in Audra's eyes? Her ambition, her passion, her relentless pursuit of excellence. It reminded him of Ashley, of Kyle, of himself. He began to see Audra not as the enemy or the interloper, but as his own blood, flawed and hurting. Still, he didn't know how to reach her. That's when Tracy stepped in. She invited Audra to tea at Society, not as a business rival, not as a scandalous revelation, but as her aunt. You don't owe me anything, Tracy said gently, but I wanted to extend an olive branch. Not because of your last name, but because you're family, whether you like it or not. Audra looked up from her cup, defensive at first, but slowly softening under Tracy's warmth. Why are you being so kind to me? She asked. You don't know me. I'm the woman who almost destroyed your nephew. Tracy smiled. You're also a woman who grew up without knowing who she really was. Who was robbed of a family. That wasn't your fault. And if I've learned anything over the years, it's that the past only defines us if we let it. You can start over, Audra. With us. It was the first real moment of grace Audra had received since the truth came out. And it meant more than she could admit. Still, forgiveness from Tracy didn't solve everything. Kyle, for instance, had become withdrawn. He'd stopped going out, spent long hours in the office, and often ignored calls from friends and family. Summer was worried. You haven't been the same since you found out, she told him during a quiet walk in Chancellor Park. Kyle exhaled heavily. How could I be? I nearly got, Summer, I almost slept with my sister. I can't shake it. It's burned into my memory. Summer took his hand. You didn't know. Neither of you did. You can't punish yourself forever. But Kyle's guilt wasn't so easily soothed. I should have trusted my instincts. Something about her always felt off but also familiar. I thought it was chemistry. It was family. He paused, looking out across the lake. And now, I don't even know who I am anymore. Everything I believed about my family, about Diane, even about how I see women, I have to question all of it. Summer pulled him into a hug, holding him tightly. You are still Kyle Abbott. You're still Harrison's father. You're still mine. None of that changes. But for Audra, identity was murkier than ever. She'd grown up believing she was unwanted, abandoned by her biological parents. She built herself from the ground up, cold, determined, unflinching. She had no one. She needed no one. Or so she thought. Now, with Jack offering a place in the Abbott family, part of her longed to accept. To know what it felt like to have a father who cared. To be loved. To be wanted. But the other part? The fierce, guarded, ambitious woman who had clawed her way to power? She couldn't just drop the walls she'd built over a lifetime. Then came the unexpected. Ashley called her. You and I have more in common than you might think, Ashley said over coffee. We're both fighters. Both underestimated. And neither of us takes well to being told what we should feel. Audra studied her warily. Why are you reaching out? You never trusted me. Ashley sipped her tea. Because you're Jack's daughter. That makes you my niece. And if there's one thing I know, it's that family is both a burden and a blessing. I've spent years battling my own brother. But I still love him. We still find our way back. That's what families do, even broken ones. Audra said nothing, but something shifted in her. A piece of armor cracked. Diane, meanwhile, had vanished from public view. She spent her days volunteering at a shelter downtown, scrubbing floors and serving food without complaint. She didn't seek forgiveness, only atonement. When Kyle visited her one afternoon, unannounced, she froze in the kitchen. I'm not here for an apology, Kyle said, arms crossed. I just want to understand why. Why didn't you tell me? Why keep it a secret until now? Diane's voice was faint. Because I was ashamed. I thought I was protecting everyone. I thought I could control the truth. But I was wrong. Kyle stared at her, expression unreadable. You hurt her. You hurt me. You let me believe she was just some manipulative executive. I hated her. I wanted to destroy her. And now I have to live with that. Diane began to cry. I wish I could take it all back. I know I've failed you. Again. Kyle's voice softened. Yeah, you did. But I don't hate you, Mom. I just don't know if I can trust you again. And with that, he walked away, leaving Diane to silently pray that one day, her son might heal. Meanwhile, Jack called an emergency board meeting at Jabbo. I'm going to make something clear, he began, standing at the head of the long table. Audra Charles is my daughter. That's not up for debate. She didn't ask for this. But she has a rightful place here. And if anyone at this company, anyone thinks they can treat her differently, undermine her, or question her credentials because of this, they'll answer to me. Audra was in the room, seated silently next to Tracy. Her face was stoic, unreadable. But inside, her heart was pounding. Never in her life had someone stood up for her like this, not publicly, not forcefully, not with such conviction. Jack continued. This family has been through scandal, betrayal, heartbreak, and more. But we've always survived. Because we stick together. And whether Audra wants it or not, she's one of us now. A silence followed. Then Billy, of all people, nodded. He's right. We don't get to choose family. But we can choose how we treat them. Slowly, the others followed. Ashley gave a reserved nod. Tracy squeezed Audra's hand under the table. After the meeting, Audra lingered in Jack's office. Why did you defend me like that? She asked. You barely know me. Jack turned to her, smiling sadly. Because I should have known you your whole life. And I'm trying to make up for lost time. I can't undo the past. But I can be the father you should have had. For the first time in her adult life, Audra Charles, now Audra Abbott, felt something foreign and terrifying. Belonging. Still, wounds like these don't heal overnight. Kyle and Audra would never be what they once were. They wouldn't joke in elevators or spar over strategy in boardrooms. But over time, they began to speak again. Briefly. Civilly. Siblings learning their boundaries. One evening, after another long board meeting, Kyle approached her. You're not the woman I thought you were, he said simply. And you're not the man I assumed you were either, she replied, her voice soft. They stood in silence for a moment. We'll figure this out. Eventually, Kyle said. Audra nodded. Yeah. Eventually. And with that, they turned and walked down separate hallways, parallel paths, connected by blood, pain, and a truth that neither of them saw coming. But just as things began settling into an uneasy calm, the shadows of Genoa City stirred once more. News of Audra's Abbott lineage had reached the ears of someone who never stayed quiet for long, Tucker McCall. Leaning back in his leather chair at GCAC, Tucker smirked as he read the headlines. Audra. Abbott. Now isn't that a plot twist? He mused aloud. The woman he once mentored, manipulated, and underestimated had now become an heiress to the very family he'd spent years trying to outmaneuver. And while their personal ties had long since frayed, Tucker sensed opportunity in the chaos. He picked up his phone and dialed her. Congratulations, princess, he drawled. You finally made it to the top of the food chain. Abbott royalty, who would have guessed? Audra's voice was cold but composed. If you're calling to gloat, don't bother. I'm not interested in playing games. Tucker chuckled. Oh, sweetheart, I'm not playing. But the rest of Genoa City? They are already setting the board. You've got your foot in the door now. Don't waste it. These people? They'll smile at you with one hand and stab you in the back with the other. You want to survive? Use your name. Leverage it. Or you'll always be the outsider.